A round of applause for Prof.
Thank you very much, my good brother Wallace. Let me first thank the organizers of this conference for putting this together at a time when it can rightly be said that the continent of Africa is at crossroads. Just this morning, I received a post from a good friend of mine from Liberia. And in that post, he says poignantly, why is it that Africans are so concerned about the conflict in the Gaza Strip and the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, with our media houses reporting it on a daily basis? Yet there is a conflict in Sudan, which has occasioned perhaps the worst humanitarian situation in the recent past. When there is a conflict in southern Cameroon, where children have not gone to school for many years. Yet there is a conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yet there is unease in Somalia. Yet there is unease in the Amhara region in Ethiopia. Yet there is unease in Central African Republic. Yet there is insurgency in northern Burkina, Mali, Chad, and unease in Guinea. And I asked myself, what is the problem? And I answered by saying, it is because we do not write our story. It is because we are defined by others. And as long as we are defined by others, as Malcolm X said famously, unless the African in the continent is respected, no black man or woman will be respected outside of the continent of Africa. There is wisdom, therefore, as my good friend Dr. Shem said, for us to begin to ask the question, who are we? And what can we do to regain confidence and to regain our rightful place in the world? Nostalgically, we talk about Mansa Musa and how his pilgrimage to Mecca changed the world. We romanticize our past. But the reality is that our continent can do better because she did many years ago. I remember reading one of the most iconic speeches ever delivered by an African in the year 1906 at the University of Columbia by South Africa's Pixley Kaisaka Seme, the regeneration of Africa. That speech went into history, talked about the pioneering movers of Pan-Africanism, such as Sylvester Williams, such as Marcus Garvey, talked about many things and said that Africa must regenerate. He reminded his audience on that day that the African spirit remains unsettled. 12,000 ships took off from the western coast of Africa to the Caribbean. 12,000. 1.8 million lost in the seas. We do not know how many died when they arrived. 6 to 10 million taken to the Arab world, with 99% of the men castrated. That is Africa for you. Then after they were done with slavery, they came up with the colonial project. They sat in Berlin, parceled our continent into 54 units, which we still kill and maim for in order to retain boundaries created by the colonizer in Berlin. Then today they refer to our continent pejoratively, I suspect, as Francophone, to mean we are speaking French, not Bambara. Anglophone, to mean we are speaking English, not Gikoyo, not Luo, not Kiganda. Lusophone, to mean we are speaking Portuguese, not Ovambo and Ovimbundu. Then they came and changed our names. Then at one time, they even said that God could not understand our languages. God could only speak in Latin. And that is what defines us even as we speak today. So that when we talk about the African diaspora, even our gravitation is holding all factors constant to those who colonize us. If you are in Dakar in Senegal, your true north is Paris. If you are in the Democratic Republic of Congo in Kinshasa, and you want to escape the pain in Kinshasa, is Brussels. If you are in Luanda, Angola, or Maputo, or Praia in Cabo Verde, your gravitation is Lisbon. If you are in Kenya, or Zambia, or Nigeria, or Ghana, if you don't gravitate towards London, it is Washington. Those of you who are students of science will well remember Pavlov's conditional reflex. It is alive and well. And the time, therefore, is to liberate ourselves from lamentation. We have lamented too long. We have agonized too long. The time is to give meaning to the statement made by Tanzania's Julius Nyerere on the 6th day of March 1997, when he was the guest of honor on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of Ghana's independence. And Mwalimu said, if Africa does not unite, there is no future for Africa. And we are not talking about the unity of the graveyard where we all agree. No, it is unity of purpose. Today, many African governments have ministries of foreign affairs with an appendage called the diaspora, even diaspora desk, but they see you as they see gold mines. It is your dollar that they are interested in. It is your pound that they are interested in. It is your euro that they are interested in. They do not see the human resource that you are. As I speak to you now, some of our best men and women are outside of the continent. Our best engineers are to be found outside of the continent. Our civil engineers are to be found outside of the continent. And it's the Chinese who are building our roads, a paradox and an irony at once. That is where we are. Today, Our best doctors are to be found outside of the continent. So that when our leaders in Kenya, when they want to give birth, they go to the United States. When they have a flu, they go to the United States. When they are about to die, they go to Europe and America and India. That is why Vladimir Putin is said to have said, but I doubt whether he said it, but that notwithstanding, he said to have said that Africa is only a graveyard for her leaders. We can do better because history has demonstrated that whenever we wanted to do better, we did. You know, many times when I think about our founding fathers and mothers, and I listen to some of them in their very unsophisticated way, some of them through music, Miriam Makeba, some of them through religion, Kim Pavita, Donna Beatrice of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some of them through the political platform, Kwame Nkrumah, Ahmed Sekou Toure, Mwalimu Nyerere, Samora, Moises Machel. Without internet, without what you and me have today, they were able to organize. When Marcus Mosias Garvey was telling people to come back home, he had no internet. No Boeing, no Airbus. When Sylvester Williams was convening the first Pan-African meeting from Trinidad and Tobago, how did he communicate? But they did it. So what must we do? You know, 2 days ago, I was invited to the Africa-Korea meeting at the University of Nairobi on the 6th of August. And I looked at the statistics that Korea, which was smaller in her economy than Kenya in 1963, today has a GDP of 1.7 trillion with a population of 51 million. And the entire continent of Africa has a GDP of no more than 2.8 trillion. That Norway, with a population of less than 10 million, has a sovereign fund of 1.7 trillion. And Africa Exim Bank only has a small fund of 4 billion, and we shout about it. We should shut up. If you look at our men and women in the diaspora, give or take, the statistics are known to you. But if you look at persons of Africa or African descent, no less than 250 million, second only to Nigeria. And if you look at the income that they generate every year, the good Dr. Shemu Chodo has only given you the statistics which are the tip of the iceberg. The story requires that we pause and ask, one week ago, I wrote to the chairman of the African Union and told him in my letter that this is the year of reparations, the year 2025. We are in the month of August, 4 months to go. What is happening? Of course, I said, rather unkindly, that, sir, when we are elected, we thought you'd do better, but you have gone back to the factory setting. It is diplomatic niceties, sterile statements and speeches, jamborees, with the consequence that Africa is a forest of protocols and declarations which yield nothing. We are the only continent whose leaders are summoned. Africa-China conference in Beijing. And all our 54 leaders by private jet are in Beijing. Africa, Russia in Sochi, and they go. Africa, even little Qatar in Doha, and they go. Africa, Washington, and they go. And the President of the United States of America has the temerity to ask an African president how well he speaks English. The time is now for you to change. And it is people in the diaspora that have changed their societies. Look through history. The state of Israel was created by their diaspora. You have a duty. The time is now for us to reflect and ask ourselves, what will our generation do? My good friend Kennedy said, and he says in his book, that every generation must find something for which it shall be known. They came, they resisted, even if they failed. The Amazon women of Dahomey resisted. Kwinzinga resisted in Angola. Mekatilili Wamenza resisted. Shaka the Zulu resisted. There was the Hair Rebellion. There was the Maji Maji Rebellion. There was the Mau Mau Rebellion. They resisted. Then there came another crop and they resisted, and we regained our independence. And we lost it through some leaders who changed for the worse. What is our generation going to do? What will we be remembered for? The Ethiopians in the diaspora have financed the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. It can be done. But we must not work in silos. We must work as one unit. The geographical entities that were bequeathed to us by the colonizers must not stand in the way of our unity. You know, in the year 2013, the then chair of the AUC in Nkosazana and Lamini Zuma wrote a letter to Kwame Nkrumah apologizing to Kwame because we refused to listen to him. Africa has long realized that we must do things for ourselves. When they sat in 1963 in Addis Ababa, they said we must do things for Africa. We must have intra-African trade. They repeated the same again in 1973 in Addis Ababa, repeated it again in 1908 in Lagos, repeated it again in Addis Ababa in the year 2013. We have Africa Agenda 2063 and Africa Continental Free Trade Area. They met in Kigali and said that we should move freely in the continent. They met in Yamoussoukro and said we shall open the air skies, but I suspect some of you were required to have visas before you came. Or if they did not call them visas, they gave them another Christian name. But you paid some money before you came here. How can it be? 33 currencies and counting. And when you go into an aircraft, they say they are expecting, they accept all major currencies. It never includes the Naira. Not the CDO, no. Not the Kwanza, not the shilling, not the Kwacha, not the Mafaranga. It is only the dollar and the euro, and even the cards. If it is not Visa, it is American. If it is not American, it's something else. We produce what we do not consume and consume what we do not produce, as said Ali Mazrui. So the time is now for us to do what we must. This is an intergenerational war which must be fought by us from different corners. You know, this morning I was listening perhaps for the umpteenth time to Martin Luther's sermon, A Knock at Midnight. And in that sermon, Luther King says many things, but he reminds us that unfortunately, as he was speaking then in 1960, still true today, we have now entered into a world of what he calls moral relativism. Everything is right, it depends. There are no anchors. No, not everything is right. The time is now, my brothers and sisters, for us to wake up. So when we leave here, let this not be another jamboree. When we leave here and we are reconvening wherever it will be, whether it's in Accra, Ghana, or Lagos in Nigeria, or Dakar in Senegal, or Maputo, or Cape Town in South Africa, let us ask ourselves sector by sector. There is a young girl whom I met recently. She's called Wakesh. That young girl told me that she'd sold the little she had in the United States of America and come back to the mother continent in what she calls return to Eden. That is a similitude of what in the Bible Abraham did. You leave Ur of the Chaldeans, not knowing where you are going to. We must do it. Come back in tourism. How can the bazaar market in Istanbul receive 99 million visitors every year, and Kenyans boast and dance naked because we have received 2.5 million visitors? In agriculture, why is it that we are importing chicken from Brazil? Why is it that we are importing sugar from Brazil? In the artificial intelligence space, are we in the fourth industrial revolution and the fifth industrial revolution? Shem Muchodo here will tell you he was the pioneer in that area, in this country. But a prophet has honor, except in his home. But he was the pioneer. Other countries used him. It is only later that we recognize that we are the gem, gold and mine, flower and gather. So you are here. My clarion call to you is go out there and remember that it can be done. There is a poem that I love written by that great Lebanese American Khalil Gibran. The title is Fear. And Khalil Gibran says that when the river leaves its source and it approaches the ocean, it trembles with fear. When it passes through the mountains, it trembles with fear of losing itself. Then it remembers that it can neither go back, it can only go forward. And then it remembers when it arrives in the ocean that joining the ocean is not losing itself, but becoming part of a bigger thing. You are here, you are becoming part of a bigger thing. And that big thing is a thing that should be made known to those who are in positions of leadership. Chinua Achebe, writing in 1983 about Nigeria, said he could well have been saying it about Africa. The problem in Africa is simply and squarely a problem of the quality of political leadership that we have. African countries don't have democracies. They have kakistocracies and kleptocracies. A government of our very worst and a government of thieves. Until the day that we deal with those issues, it falls and rises on leadership. If you doubt me, ask the Singaporeans. If you doubt me, ask the Vietnamese. Vietnam now produces more coffee than Kenya and Uganda combined. Malaysia now produces more palm wine. In the next 3 years, China is going to produce more cocoa than Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Ghana combined. Those who are relying on diamond, artificial diamond is already replacing real diamond, and the Chinese are doing it. So the Botswana had better look out. The Namibians had better look out. Brothers and sisters, there is no point of preaching to the choir. I've said what I had to say. Mine is to exhort you to do that which is good and right. It is John Henry Clark who said, there is no point of shouting black beauty when there is no black power. Black is only beautiful when it is powerful. So we must, in the nature of things, become black beauty and black power. And I was reading not so long ago that even to be a good Samaritan, you've got to have resources. If you don't have resources, the best you can do is to pray and fast. But in the intervening period, the person who has fallen on the road to Jericho needs hospital bills to be paid. He needs food to eat. He needs shelter. So let us be good Samaritans with something with which to support good Samaritanism. And I must also commend you, men and women in the diaspora. There are countries today which, if money did not flow from the outside world, they would be dead, and you know them. I don't want to shame them. I don't want to shame them because you have done a great job. Today, when African heads of states meet people in the diaspora, they greet them with supported hands because they know that this is where the honey comes from. You can do more. You must do more because you have no choice but to do more. You know, as I conclude, and now have great meaning and see great meaning in some of these clarion calls. When as a young man at the university, during our student politics, we used to say, "A luta continua, victoria certa." We mouthed it with the exuberance of youth. But today I understand it deeper. The struggle must continue, and victory is indeed certain. And it's intergenerational. When as a young student we used to shout Amandla and saying awet or awet, we mouthed it, and it was only mouth deep. Today, it is deep. Because power must indeed be ours. When in 1960, Robert Mangaliso Sobuko was saying, Maibu e Africa. Power must come to Africa. Now I understand it a little deeper. Because I want to assume that as I grow older, perhaps I grow wiser. But remember, even fools grow old. So it is not necessarily the case that when you grow older, you become wiser. So my brethren, let us go out there and do the little that we can do. Because if you ask the forest will tell you, I am because of the single trees. If you ask the ocean will tell you, I am because of the droplets. So don't think you are too small. You are the droplets that make the ocean. You are the trees that make the forest. Go out there and let us collaborate. Only a few days ago, on first day of August, we were celebrating my foundation. The 30th anniversary started in 1994. And I can say with pride that after 30 years, we are now present in 50 countries. And we are working with young Africans. And I can say that I've never, ever received any donation from GIZ, from USAID, from anybody from the West. You pull yourself by your bootstraps. And if you have no boots, lift your fingers and lift your feet. It can't be done. It must be done. And it's you who are going to do it. God bless you.